It's the grandson of Right Thought. So someone asked me a question today about the nation of Israel and spiritual Israel. Well, there's spiritual Israel, and you're telling me about the nation of Israel and it being Negroes, and that God's going to revenge them on their enemies. And I don't understand, because there's a spiritual Israel, and spiritual Israel comes from all nations of people. Those are God's true people. Okay, so when God gave the covenant to Israel, and he said that if you don't keep these commandments, these curses shall fall upon thee, and they shall be a sign upon thee. What people went into chattel slavery and had yokes of iron put on their neck on the earth? We know the Negroes did. Now, when this happened to the Negroes, did anyone else go into this with them, or was it just the Negroes? It says you shall be cursed in the city and in the field. So the people that were picking the cotton in the field, was it Negroes, or was it all nations doing that of spiritual Israel? When it says that you shall serve your enemies for hunger and want of all things, your clothes, your textiles, your everything, you shall not lend to your other nations, but the other nations shall lend unto thee. Is that happening to all nations, or is that happening to Negroes? Let's cut Israel off, that the name of Israel shall be no more. So they cut all the nations off, or did they cut the Negroes off from their heritage? How do you answer these questions? How do you reconcile these things? When it says that your children should be taken from you, your eyes shall fail with longing for them, but you shall not see them again, for they shall be sold. Did that happen to Negroes? Mm-hmm. Did that happen to the whole white world? No. When it says they shall no longer call you by your name, but you should be called by bywords. Did that happen to so-called Negroes? Yes. Did it happen to the whole white world? No. When it says an enemy should come against you, and with a strange countenance, and with a strange tongue, did that happen to the whole wide world, or did that happen to the Negroes? Did their language get completely taken away from them, and now they speak a completely different language, completely, as a people? They don't have one language that they speak. They speak everybody else's languages. So as I said, oh, and by the way, has God cast away his people which he foreknew? See, a lot of people have this replacement theology where they think that the Most High, or Israel, has been replaced with a brand new Israel. Has God cast away, which means threw away, his people which he foreknew or knew before? Israel? God forbid. That means no, 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 no. I would never let that happen. I change not. What does Hebrews say? The book of Hebrews in the New Testament? What does it say? I shall make a covenant with the house of Judah and with the house of Israel. And I'm going to make a new covenant with the house of Judah and the house of Israel. And I am God, I change not. So yes, though the seed is spread amongst the nations, because we read there that it says that you shall be scattered to the four winds. You're going to be scattered to the four corners. Israel is. Does it change the fact that that people suffered those things as a nation according to scripture? No, it doesn't change it. So does God cast away his people which he foreknew? No, he doesn't. Now, the 144,000, y'all who want to be smartasses, the 144,000 are taken from which tribes? 12,000 from each of the tribes of Israel. So what's this whole world stuff? In the book of Luke, it says that Israel shall be saved from their enemies. So the enemies that the Most High said that he would send against them, which we all know it in history, you read your history books, you'll see there's Negroes, I've just proved it, that have had enemies destroying them and putting them into slavery, just like the scriptures said would happen. Not the whole wide world, Negroes had that happen. And so he says that I will deliver them from their enemies in the book of Luke. Why was he saying that? Because Yahushua was born, the Messiah. So the Messiah was born to liberate them from their bondage of the enemies. Just like now. So the people that look up for your redemption draweth nigh, who did Yahushua who was he talking to? Israel. He said, I come not into the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Y'all don't want to hear that though. Y'all want to deny that. Y'all want to just deny it. He didn't mean it. He's talking spiritual. Has God cast away his people which he foreknew? I will make a covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. There shall be 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, 144,000 elect. And then the grafted in branches. See? Grafted in. We got some original branches here that have not been cast away, that y'all don't want to honor. Y'all want to boast against the original branches when you talk like that. That's in scripture too. If you don't know it, read it. And if you boast against the original branches, then you'll be broken off and cast into the fire, see? Because you got grafted in and now you got pride. I'm grafted into the spiritual Israel. Well, you better humble down to the original Israel. You better humble your ass right on down. Because if you boast against the original branches, you'll be cast into the fire. You see? So to answer any questions about that, there you have it. The Most High does not change. He has not cast away his people. And you have all the proof to see who his people are. He says these things will be a sign. So if you want to go be on Lafayette Avenue, you better look at the sign and say, oh, yep, it says Lafayette. I'm on the right street. Well, if you want to know who Israel is, look at Deuteronomy 28 and read it. And then you'll know who they are. And then has the Most High changed? No. You understand? So if you're a grafted in branch, then humble down to the original branch before you're cast off. And if you're an original branch, then don't boast yourself against the grafted in branch neither. Because we're all one family. See? All one tree. Siluam Israel.